Why can't my accountant claim capital allowances? Well, accountants do claim capital allowances, and they claim them all the time. So if you buy, for instance, as a dentist, a dental chair for, say, £25,000, then your accountant would see a receipt for that, an invoice for that, and they would, by nature, put that against capital allowances and claim tax relief on it because it is a piece of plant and machinery that you use within your business. When you look at a property has all sorts of things within it that can be claimed for capital allowances, but not everything. And teasing out what you can and can't claim and what the values are that you could use for that is a really interesting art. And that's what we've built to as a business, that is to look at capital allowances in the context of commercial property only, including dentists, and be able to put a value to the things that you can put a value to, make sure it's the correct value, and put that together in a report for an accountant to give to you. So yes, your accountant can claim capital allowances, but in terms of capital allowances within a commercial property, it's a much more complex thing to do, and that's where we come in as specialists who work with your accountant to help you claim the correct amount of capital allowances for your property. So what are capital allowances? Capital allowances are an incentive given by the government and HMRC to allow a business to invest in plant and machinery. So if you bought a dental chair, for instance, or an X-ray machine, then the government says, well, you're actually using that within your business as a piece of plant and machinery, so you should be able to offset that against tax. So whatever tax rate you're paying, that amount is offset against the purchase price of that piece of equipment. In terms of property, there are lots of things that you can claim capital allowances on within a property. So again, we look back to this definition of what's plant and machinery, and things like lighting, the things that you use within a toilet or a bathroom, things like cabinetry, air conditioning. All these things have a value that is a plant and machinery value and that you can claim capital allowances against. And that's the sort of thing that we would value. And there is a legitimate reason for you to have that within your business, and so you can claim the tax back on it. And so we put that into a report, which allows you to look at what things are within your building as plant and machinery, put a value to it, and then claim the tax back on it. I've had people ask me, is this actually a legitimate thing to do? And the way I'd answer that is to say, well, yes, as we've discussed, your accountant will claim capital allowances for you on individual items. Sometimes looking at a property, it feels like a real bonus to be able to claim capital allowances on it and get tax relief on actually owning a building, especially if that building is going to go up in value. And accountants do debate that with us. But the fact is that it's laid down in legislation that if you have plant and machinery within a property or within a property setting, then you're allowed to claim capital allowances on that in the same way as you would for a dental chair, an X-ray machine, a van, a computer, or anything else that you would normally consider to be valuable for capital allowances. So yes, it's an absolutely legitimate thing to do. And in fact, the government over the last few years has encouraged the investment in plant and machinery and the claiming of capital allowances to offset that. HMRC have the right to look at anybody's tax returns and tax status. And sometimes they have and sometimes they haven't. In the main, we don't get inquiries, but we do handle them. So if you find yourself being asked questions by HMRC about the capital allowances that you've claimed, then we consider that to be a normal part of our work to help you and help HMRC understand what's being claimed and why it's being claimed. And so we would look at that and we would support you in talking to HMRC and negotiating any valuation. Nobody's going to go to prison for making a legitimate capital allowances claim. Accountants use capital allowances all the time. We've made many hundreds of capital allowances claims and none of our clients have been to prison. We do actually have a prison as a client. It's a prison that was one of Her Majesty's prisons, had real prisoners in it, but then somebody's bought the property and they now run it as a leisure facility, and we have actually claimed capital allowances on that. So you can go to prison in terms of going to it as a leisure facility, but no, you're not going to go to prison if you claim capital allowances. So we've spoken a little bit about what capital allowances are and how you claim capital allowances, but I guess the biggest question for somebody who owns a commercial property or wants to own a commercial property is, when do I actually speak to somebody about capital allowances? And that quite often is the most complex issue we find, which is that people don't know about capital allowances and when to ask about them. And our advice is, in general, if you're buying a commercial property or looking to buy a practice, as early as possible. You can get things fixed if you look at capital allowances after you've bought a property, but it's 100 times easier to get it done within the buying process. We can then liaise with your solicitors and the accountancy firm and help to get things that make the claim of capital allowances much smoother. In terms of if you own a commercial property, then anytime you want to talk to us or via Hive, then please get in touch, and we can say and look at no obligation whether you can make a claim and give you an idea of what the size of the claim would be. So our advice is always to speak to somebody as soon as possible, especially if you're looking to buy or sell a property. But if you own one, then get in touch, and as I say, it's a complete no obligation exercise. We'll tell you what the likely claim could be if there's a claim available to you, and what we'd need at that point. So Six Forward is a small consultancy business which works entirely with the professionals of people that own commercial property. So we don't look for business direct, and we've grown over the last 12 or 14 years from a person who is with a military background and had very much a consultancy focused role within the military. Looked at an area of business that he felt needed more support, which was the claim of capital allowances within commercial property, and has put a team together that satisfy the need for accountants to have somewhere to refer to where claiming capital allowances becomes complex and is involved within commercial property. We now have a team which involves tax specialists, surveying specialists, and in fact we do have an ex-HMRC inspector. And between the team, we actually write literature and have books published which are references for accountants about capital allowances and how you claim them in commercial property. So we are recognised subject matter experts. We've had many articles published in taxation and accountancy magazines, and we write reference books for accountants. But outside of all that, our core is to help accountants make capital allowances claims for their clients to help them to save tax. From our point of view, the thing that we hate to see is people missing out on capital allowances. And the easiest way to do that is to buy a commercial property or practice without actually looking into the capital allowances process, because there is legislation put in place by the government a few years ago now, which has made it harder to claim. It doesn't make it impossible to claim, but it does mean you need to have good advice within the buying process to make a capital allowances claim viable. So please get in touch with somebody as soon as you can.